Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. Sonia, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Digital,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here.
He's a younger.
Have, the, do I have a motion to,
Rolled in the new. And he was the city administrator and bought it.
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
any further comment or discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We have nothing under appearances and acknowledgements, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Do I have any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Got down into unfinished business. Item number 1 is the second reading on the ordinance number 1633, medical cannabis establishment. This is a temporary ordinance that the city's putting into effect. As it states, we will deny any permits or license for people that are applying for one for the city until we get further guidance from the state. Do I have a motion on the second reading ordinance number 1633 medical cannabis establishment?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Hearing any, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2. Fred, provide direction to the staff regarding 2021 opening of math electrical components quote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, you should have in your packet a significant bulk of materials that were submitted as bids for the equipment purchased for MAC. In that, the times that were listed are real similar from one manufacturer to the next, one supplier to the next. The lowest responsible quote appears to be from Malloy Electric for both components and has basically the same lead time or the best lead time as any of the others. That'd be my recommendation if we do proceed to replace all the components added, that we would award the purchase of the materials from Malloy Electric.
Do I have a motion to award the bid to Malloy Electric for the electrical component for the mat?
Can I ask a question before we do this? Do we have to make a motion on this, David? Because it's under a certain threshold?
If you're spending money,
Okay,
and particularly because it is under a certain threshold, you should have. a motion.
okay, I'll make a motion to accept that.
I will second Malloy. Malloy, right, Brad?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
I have a question, I guess. Are we gonna try to operate the pool as is before we spend money?
I think that the options that I've discussed with staff and commissioners as well is we can, this work needs to be done for the pool to be done correctly. Now, whether we want to try to find a quicker solution to getting it up and running and then have this work done at the end of the year is something that we can look more into. I think we wouldn't want to do the quick fix and then just leave it. And we'd want to certainly come back to do this type of work. So the questions to us there would be, first and foremost, what risk to safety would there be for our patrons at the pool? Secondly, what liability issues would there be? Who would assume those liability issues? And then, thirdly, what does that save us from this? And I think staff are open to discussion on those, as well as looking for direction on that as well. And the liability issue, we've reached out to our provider to discuss that, and they would require that the work be done by somebody outside the city, which I don't think we'd have any issue with that. I don't think that there'd be any guarantee that if something were to happen, that it couldn't come back to us. My perspective would be that if something were to happen, everybody'd be pulled into it. The contractor that we hired to do the quick work, the city, everybody's insurance companies. If something were to happen, that'd be certainly a possibility. I agree. So that's our concern. Whether there's any risk of human safety or of life on that's another question. That'd be kind of our first concern there. And I'm sure everybody here is on the same page there as well. It's something we can continue to look more towards. And I guess I'm glad you brought it up, because that was one of the things we wanted for discussion tonight is the lead time on materials for this little bit is 30 to 36 days. So, that's the minimum to get the supplies in. We'll have to go out for quotes on the labor to get the work done. We don't know what that timeline will be. We're guessing maybe around 2 weeks. So you throw 2 weeks on top of that. And that'd be the minimum to do it this way. If there's an option to do it quicker, it's still assure safety and addresses liability concerns. I don't know what timeline that would be on. And that'd be up for discussion if we think that could be done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know. And then the consideration is, what's the difference there? What are we saving to do that? And it's up to the commission to determine whether that's something that you want us to pursue or not, to do both options. It'd probably save you 2 to 3 weeks. I'm thinking you could do it. But again, we have a couple of hurdles to jump through first.
Fred, I got a couple questions. Now, if we go with Malloy Electric, are we starting to work on so we can put out a bid right away for the labor? Or do we have to wait till the material comes in?
We would do it immediately. We would go out tomorrow and
So,
solicit the labor to put these in.
okay, so this, if this goes through, you'll start working on getting a bid for the labor.
And, there's a couple options. One of them would be to, look at the timeline, and if obviously, the shorter the timeline, the more it'll cost us. If we want to try to do something interim and try to open up the pool with just, redoing the grounds, all that type of stuff, that could be one option. And the other one would be to replace everything, knowing that if we do it in a short time frame, it's probably going to cost us a little bit more money. And then we could also we talked about having with Mark Joffer that we would have a 2 timeline bid. One was to do it right away. One was to do it more or less after the season and take your time and see what it was going to cost us to try to shorten it up. And that might be something that we'd have possibly in a week or so. We'd be able to get that information back. We got to get it out to it'll be probably, we got it out to them, it'll be 2 weeks before we could have it back in front of the commission, just because of the short week and getting it out to them and giving them enough time to get them into the pool and look at it for the contractors and get them to get some time to put them numbers together. And I don't know if I've got the plans yet from Mark that are completed. So.
Are there any other projects we could do at the pool in the interim until that? I guess I'm not familiar with the startup, but cleanup and.
You're talking like maintenance projects or
Anything,
like
just
recreation projects?
Just getting it up and running to help it
Good question.
when we do have this work complete, that we're not waiting on other items at the pool.
we talked about doing some filling and, we can do some cleaning, take the cover off, do some cleaning underneath the, because there's dirt underneath that in the bottom and you have to run the vacuum and all that stuff to clean that up. The issue we run into if we try to fill the pool is then we need to start circulating it, running through the pumps and chlorinating it and bringing it up to quality. Otherwise, if it sits there stagnant, you just create a bigger mess than what you started with. So it's once we fill it, we need to get it rolling and get it moving. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know how long it take. It shouldn't take too long to go through and redo the grounds. And get that reestablished. My concern is I don't know where we end up liability wise, and that's a question that's still open right now. And that's something that is of concern. So that's something that weighs on my mind a little bit. In my tenure as a working for a city in the city of Fort Pierre, we had a situation completely different than this, but it had a similar tone to it where a change was made on a project and it created an unsafe condition, but nobody caught it at the time when the project was done. Advance 16 years later, and some kids were playing and one of them falls into this area that was a problem, and then we got sued. And it was the law of unintended consequences. When you make a change in a project, things happen, and that's when we went to deposition. And the only thing that saved the city, thankfully, and unfortunately for the family, we offered to pay for all the medical bills up front, and they decided not to. And they took us to court, and their lawyer failed to meet the time statute of limitations. So we got lucky on that as far as not having to pay, but it was an unfortunate situation. We don't want to see anybody ever get hurt in one of our facilities. And so that's the thing that came out of it. And never say it can never happen, because it has happened multiple times in my career, and that scares me.
I think that's been my biggest fear all along, is if we rush to get the electrical done and we get it all going and something happens to a kid, I'm done on this commission, because that's on me, as far as I'm concerned. I just want to make sure that we do it right. I know everybody wants the pool open, and I'm with Kelly on that. If there's a way to get it done, let's get it done. I think it's important, because it is a good resource for the kids in this community. But I'm not going to do it at the expense of having one of the kids get hurt.
If I could get this off my plate, it'd make me the happiest person in the room.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, there's nobody that wants this open more than me.
Yeah.
But my years in the military and my risk assessment and everything I was taught as commander tells me that I have to do everything I can in my power to make sure that we don't hurt anybody at this facility, because of the risk, the relative risks that are there. And it's a tough decision, and it's hard to go there, but
I don't disagree with you, Kelly. I think we could go in there, clean things up, re-terminate all the wires, and it will last the same. But with what came over the news on the cable car where they jerry-rigged the brake, and now it fell and lost, 17 people, because they took a shortcut on the emergency brake. I hate to see something like, I'm not saying it will, but
So is our insurance, is our liability insurance restricting us from being able to start the pool? Or what's restricting us?
Yeah. As
Because
far as the insurance goes, you can always speculate when there isn't actually an incident or a claim. And so if we were to clean up the grounds, get it opened up as soon as we can, and there was an incident, it depends on the circumstances of that. And one opinion is if it is due to the work that was done, the manner it was done, it could go back to the contractor that did the work. And like I said before, it's not unreasonable that we would get pulled into it. But it's a tough question to answer, because there's no guarantee without concrete circumstances. That'd be accurate to you?
I would say so, yes, other than it's not likely we'd be pulled into what we would be.
So, I mean, because there's components that we're not changing out too, so at what point is everything good enough? And
Completely agree, and that's your background, and that's why I appreciate where you're coming from too. And I'm not specialized in it. I have to take the word of you, Brad, and you, and Jameson, and our attorney, and but I also want to make sure that I've always said we want to do it right. And I don't necessarily want to put a Band-Aid on it and have something happen. That's my biggest concern.
I think the biggest consideration it comes to for me is at best case scenario, you're probably getting 3 weeks, you know, and that would be great to have it for another 3 weeks. But, you know, what's the cost benefit there? Is that benefit worth the additional risk? I don't know. We're standing by for your direction. Before you hear it.
And we'll do whatever the commission wants. I mean, there's absolutely no issue with that. This is your pool, it's the city's pool. We'll do whatever the commission wants to do. There's absolutely no issue with that. We'll make it happen as fast as we can, whichever course you plot. I would recommend that tonight we get these materials so that when the weather, regardless of which path you choose, we'll have materials available to do the work, whether it's now or later. And we'll get them coming, we'll have them here so that we can do the work when the right time. So that'd be my recommendation. So as to whether or not we go and clean the grounds and try to operate it, we'll leave that up to the commission, and we'll do whatever the commission desires.
How long will the work, how long do you suppose it'll take them to fix it, Brad, once we get the materials here?
Estimating 2 weeks, talking with, and that's based on Muth. When we talked to Muth earlier on, they looked at it. They're the ones that had looked at it quite a bit. I did have a conversation with them about, remaking the grounds and liability and some of that, and they were not real keen on accepting any liability for the safety of the, other than the grounds. So they'll stand behind the work they did in the grounds. What they do is they would go through, redo the grounds, come in with a FLIR, forward-looking infrared radar, and look at the heat signatures and see if there's any bad connections, and go from there. Now, that only looks at what you can visibly see. It doesn't tell you if everything's gonna work the way you want it to work. There's probably the worst case scenario in my mind is that we get the pool up and running, and day 3, it goes down. And it burns something up, and we have to go through this process of replacing everything. And so that's probably the worst case scenario. We have the help on hand, we have everything going, and then we're down for however long, depending on when that happens, compared to the materials arrival and the availability of labor. And that can happen any year, and that's not anything unusual. So it's a very tough deal.
Yeah, I mean, going backward, Muth originally said that's how they were gonna attack this. They were gonna come in and clean all the connections. It was gonna be under $30,000, and that's what they brought to the insurance company. And I think it was on us to decide to hire an engineer, which I don't know, why we did that, but it's neither here nor there. My opinion would be to get an electrical contractor involved to look at it again.
Is there a specific safety concern? I mean, we're talking about concerns a lot, but I never hear any specifics. Is there a specific safety concern or a specific set of safety concerns? Actual safety concerns to people if the pool starts?
There are.
Can you tell me one?
I can tell you probably 3 of them.
Okay,
The first one obviously is electrical shock of some sort, probably more of an issue for one of our pool workers that goes into the room. If something were to be not grounded properly, they come in contact with it. If they're wet, they could get shocked or, electrocuted. There's an issue if something happens with chlorine, we overdose the pool, we could cause some skin irritation, some burns if we overdose it. For some reason, that malfunctions as part of this process. The last one, and probably the most morbid and in some respects scary one, is that something malfunctions on the boiler and it doesn't ignite, and the gas valve comes on, and we have that fan sucking the air out of the exhaust where the gas would be, pulling it back into the room. That's probably the one that scares me the most. And what the risk of that is, I can't give you a percentage, what it is, if it's 1/1,000,000th or
I understand.
1/10,000th.
I understand. I was really
Those are
just
the
looking
scenarios
for,
that scare me.
I was just looking for an educated technical professional's rough estimates as to what the specific risks are. Because we sit around and we talk a lot about liability. And I mean, liability is impossible to gauge. It's impossible to gauge because it'll be the facts and the circumstances at the time that the event occurs. And none of us can create those right now. And we can't know what those are to a T. But what we can know are some, based on relying on professionals like you, what are some of the potential risks? And when we hear those risks, are they significant risks? shock and electrocution scares the hell out of me. We'll have a claim like we've never seen since I was a city attorney. That's for sure, whether it's an employee or a patron, it won't matter. That's real. I can't gauge the other two as much. I'm just not a technical professional. But you heard them now. You as a commission, I think, have heard the risks. And some specific ones, and I believe up to the commission, obviously, what they're gonna do. I think many of us do, but it helps me to hear those risks, potential risks.
So this bid includes everything we need for the electrical side of it.
Just, yes, on the electrical side.
Doesn't include the boiler.
It does not include the boiler at this point.
And the boiler's 12 weeks out, he said last week.
Is that something we've ordered? I can't remember.
We have not ordered it yet. It's 12 weeks out. We're trying to find somebody that will sell it to us, and we haven't found anybody yet that would sell it to us. So we may have to go through a HVAC contractor to get that.
I apologize, I'm a little late to the party with this question, but do we think the current boiler works?
We could possibly test fire it. We can't run it very long because we have to have water circulating through it.
Okay.
And because it's a 1.8 million BTU, when it's got a 2-inch gas line coming into it, it puts a lot of heat out. And if we don't have the water moving, we could ruin it in the
So-
process of testing it.
So a few minutes ago, you said that this, something could happen, it goes down after 3 days. We get mobilized, we get open. Is the boiler one of those concerns?
It would hamper how soon you could open it. Right now, what happens, the water comes out of the water system at about 53 degrees, somewhere in there, 54 degrees. It's gonna take some time for that to warm up. It just from the sun, especially if we get as cloudy as we've been this last month. It sounds like we're going into a warming spell, so that'll probably help quite a bit. A few 90-degree days and you can heat that water up pretty quickly. The pools are painted in light color so you can see people in the bottom of them, but that makes them really poor at collecting heat. So it takes them a little longer than what you'd normally think to warm up. So the boiler does make it so you could shorten up that length of time substantially to where you could get warm enough for people to get in the pool. Now, the temperature never really seems to bother the kids too much. You'll see them out there bobbing up and down, freezing and shaking, blue lipped, and you say, "Are you having fun?" They'll be like, "Yeah," because they're in the water and they're having fun. But it does make it less, comfortable for them, and they don't get to enjoy it as much. So
Can the pool operate without a functioning boiler?
So we bypass.
Yeah. we can, it doesn't, you can bypass it. There's no issue there.
And
It is-
that's the current plan. If we aren't able to find a boiler from somebody sooner than 12 weeks, we can still get the electrical work done. Tried the boiler. If it works, great. Use it for the year, replace the boiler, we get a new one in. If it doesn't work, just take a little bit of time for the sun to warm it up, but that could be a couple weeks still.
Kelly, who do you think for an electrical contractor to come?
I would just say to open it up to any of the local electrical contractors.
We can't use local, correct?
Yeah.
Can we
Just
use
not a
local?
staff.
We just can't use our
Just
own
not
staff.
our own staff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't use our
yeah,
staff, sorry.
yeah.
And I would support that, I think. I mean, what's it hurt? I mean, we're this far into it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they could go in there, we could clean all the connections, start it up and find other issues.
They're the big red ones. We've been
Yeah.
off for a year.
But right now, we honestly don't know what's broke in that pool. Besides some discoloration and some connections that need to be tended to.
I think one option forward is approving the materials from Malloy here, getting quotes to do this work, getting quotes to do the cleaning work as well, and reassessing at the next meeting. At least keeps all options moving forward.
And I'll explain to you the process we went through and why we ended up with an engineer and a little difference between what Muth was proposing and what we're doing now. So offline, we don't need that here. It's stuff that's been in previous meetings, but I can sit and talk with you about that to make sure you understand why we did what we did.
I did have one more question for you, Brad, before we move on this, unless someone else has. The warranty on these parts, are we gonna, being we're buying the parts and having someone else do the work, is there gonna be any issue? You know how that goes, if something goes wrong, is the person installing it gonna say, well, that's a bad part? And Malloy, if we get them from Malloy, they're gonna say, no, it was your installer.
you might get into that. I can't guarantee that there'd be anything. Most of the contractors and most of the suppliers that we deal with, they're very reputable. They take care of people and, we don't buy that much from Malloy, but a lot of the other ones we buy hundreds of thousands of dollars from, and we've got a reputation in the industry. And I think that helps a lot that, we're a solid company as far as they look at us. I mean, we bought, in the last several years, we probably bought, since I've been here, in the 6 years I've been here, we probably bought somewhere around $1.5 million worth of equipment or more from the local, suppliers in the region. So we've got a pretty good reputation. I think that they would, treat us pretty good
Okay.
as a buyer. Again, we don't do that much with Malloy, but they do have the best price. They are kind of the VFD go-to people. So, it doesn't surprise me that they got the best price on that, and that gives them the best price overall.
Do we have to open it to bid for like a local contractor to come in and do the work?
Not based on the dollar threshold. Well, I mean, I'm just looking at what's before us now.
Sure. Yeah, I'm talking like if we were to have somebody come in and do what he wants done, we have to take that out to bid.
We were just gonna do quotes, just the same process as we did here, but because we've kept everything right now, and these just came in last Thursday at 4 o'clock or whatever, when I finally got them. So just had enough time to put them together on Friday and get them out, but we were gonna do the same process with the contractors, take them down there, get them, show them the work. I was hoping to have the materials from the engineer to give to them, so they have something in their hands to look at and give, numbers to, instead of just look at this and give me a number. And get those back. It's gonna take a little bit of time. They're gonna have time to look at it. They're gonna have a little bit of knowledge in it. I don't know how long it'll take them to put something together. We might be able to get something fairly quick. The quote to get the replacement of all this stuff will be, take a little longer. So that'll probably be the one that wouldn't be for, not following meeting, but the meeting after that, before we could have that amount. And we'll still probably do that, whether we do the quick fix or not. So I think that's kind of what I'd be looking at is 2 weeks from now, on the 15th, that we would have the quotes back from the contractors. And we'd have something for the commission to consider on that end. We can bring the contractors in and have them look at it and give us quotes on doing the rebonding, if you will, of all the grounds. And get those numbers back. We'll see if we get them next week, being a short week. We'll see if we get them back next week. I'm gonna be gone the next 2 days, so somebody else is gonna have to show them the pool, which is unfortunate, but it's just nature of the beast.
I'll go give me a cue.
I think the quoting process will help us
Mhm.
see who puts us
Correct.
in
I
that
think-
30-day window.
Adam, are you more asking if we got another electrical engineer like Kelly wanted?
Yeah, I want to know.
Do we have to put that out for bid?
Correct.
Or can we just pick an electrical engineer to give us a second opinion on this?
You don't have to bid that.
No,
Okay.
what he wants is to get an electrical contractor to go in and be able to do the
Okay.
fixes, what he thinks needs to be fixed. Outside of this bid, this is something
Okay.
different.
Okay,
I think the
My
work
mistake.
regardless needs to be done at some point, whether we do it in June or we do it in September.
Exactly. And then we need to do it while we still have water in the pool, so when we get done, we can test everything. So that's gonna be kind of interesting as they go through and replace the stuff, if we can keep the pumps running long enough to test some of it. And then we get a boiler in hopefully by then too, so might not have it by then, we'll have to see.
We'll know November then.
any further comments to discussion? Okay, so I got a motion on the table.
Can I ask a question?
Yep,
If it's gonna prolong to the middle of July, why don't you fix it the right way and just say it's closed, because it is never gonna happen to open, been dragging their feet for 2 months now.
Well, we're not
We ain't
dragging
got
our,
the first
we're not-
days.
we're not dragging our feet. We're trying to fix it the way it needs to be done.
That's what I said,
We're-
you
we're
know
not-
you're not gonna get it before July
Not
15th.
necessarily.
You
That's
just
what,
said that,
that's what we'll know after next week.
so there's no use even thinking about it, public, you might as well make it public.
I think it brings up a good point of what's that threshold, when is it not worth opening up anymore? And that's something we're constantly evaluating. It's still our hope and dreams to get it open this year. And to do that by beginning to mid-July. After that point, we'll have to assess whether it's still worth it. Absolutely.
That's what our hope is by next week. If we can get
Yes.
some bids back by next week, we'll know probably what direction. we're headed.
Yes,
Has anybody thought about, having the state inspect the pool when it gets done to take the liability off of the city commission? Have water and natural resources come in and inspect it? Or, have a state engineer come in and do the inspecting of it? I don't know. It's up to you guys.
I reached out to the South Dakota State Electrical Commission, actually the local electrical inspector at Hartford, and he passed it on to the executive director in Pierre, and they don't want to assume any of the liabilities with this, so.
And I'm not familiar with any formal permitting or approval from the state level on that sort of thing. No, I'm not aware of it. I'm not saying it couldn't exist. I've never heard of it.
As a former.
Thank
buil-
you.
Yeah, as a former building official, when we had our building permits, right on the front of the building permit, it says that the person signing the permit is responsible for meeting the code, meeting all the life safety aspects of the project. And as an inspector, we did not incur any, I mean, unless there was gross negligence, which is in every single thing that we do. If we do something really bad that's illegal or grossly negligent, then yes. But if it's something that gets missed because it gets covered up or whatever, that the inspector's not responsible for it, the builder's responsible for it. So that's something that's in pretty much all of those permits, just to, because the inspection is a one-time shot, one-time glance at it. You can walk off the project, they'll pull out the 20-minute rated door and they'll put in a nice glass door on the garage. And, you know, I won't tell you that I know for a fact that's happened many times, but as an inspector, you can't do anything about it.
any further comments, question? Okay, we got a motion on the table and the second to take the bids of Malloy Electric for the electrical components for the mat. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
Brad, I appreciate all the hard work very much.
You need to tell my staff that, because they've been having to do more because I've been tied up on some of these things. So it's the staff that's been putting in the extra hours and helping out. It's not just me. So I
We
know
do,
that
we appreciate all of it.
it's a team effort.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to get an electrical contractor involved as well, or is that?
I think we got direction on that, so we
Okay.
can move forward with that. Yes.
All right, sounds good.
Moving down into new business. Item number 1. Roxy, did you want to bring us up to speed on this one?
I can give you the rough lowdown and Brian's here for any technical questions you have.
I'll go ahead and read this long description here. Authorize the mayor to sign memorandum of agreement among the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the South Dakota State Historical Preservation Office, the City of Madison, and the South Dakota Office of Emergency Management regarding the City of Madison, Madison Park Creek Program, and the treatment of adverse effect to the historical monument Morrill Creek Wall, Lake County, South Dakota.
That's right. Can you repeat that?
No. I think there should be a limitation to these.
This is a federal document. so-
Yes, I know.
Basically, what this is just a memorandum of agreement with all the agencies involved that the mayor just read off for Site 2 and Site 3 of the rock wall. This is just saying that it's made it through the EHP, it's made it through SHPO. They've agreed that we can go ahead and fix this with these stipulations. You're gonna sign off, the mayor's gonna say that he agrees that along with all the other signatures that are required, and once I get all the signatures back, we'll have a formal document with everyone's signature on it. I've had the mayor look this over, he didn't have a problem with it. David looked it over, didn't have a problem with it. Ryan is good with it. So we are just looking for a signature tonight. Again, if you have technical questions, Ryan can answer those. I will tell you that once this gets signed, then the project moves to its final stage. And hopefully at that point, we will be back here within a couple of weeks, I'm thinking, to sign the final paperwork on the money portion of it. So this is for just site 2 and 3 because they are the ones that are located within the historic district. Site 2 is on the historical registry. Site 3 is eligible. Not that it's on it, but it's eligible for it. So that's why you're only seeing site 2 and 3. Site 1 has already been obligated and ready for the construction phase.
Ryan, did you have anything to add?
I can answer any questions, but basically this, just to kind of keep the high points is kind of the differences between the two sites. So site 2 is a memorial park. And in that site, we'll have to hire a consultant, a qualified historical consultant. And actually at both sites, they'll go around and they'll take some photographs of the walls before any construction activities begin. And then they'll document those for the state archives. The difference between the two sites is site 2 is replacing materials in kind. So those walls didn't actually collapse, they just kind of slid. And so we'll replace and rehabilitate the walls as they stand and then add additional scour protection at the base. Site 3, which is between Egan Avenue and Hearth Avenue, we're actually going to replace the walls completely with structural riprap, and that will armor the creek. What we'll do in site 3 is take the facade block walls or blocks and we'll store them at the Public Works Department. And we can utilize those on site 2 during that rehab. And then we can keep those in perpetuity and use those if we have any other collapses on the creek. And we can be selective about what's kept. We don't have to keep the rough blocks, we'll just keep the unique split face stones. But this, I think this MOA is just all intended to mitigate the adverse effect on the historic properties and then kind of document that for our archives.
I have to say, from my standpoint, getting this signed is a huge step at working through the FEMA process. Ryan might disagree because then all of the construction starts, that's when his real work starts. But a lot of this is going to be tying up some loose ends on the paperwork portion with me. I did just some quick numbers here. Between sites 1, 2, and 3, total money that we're looking at is 4.7 million. So it's some good money. That's for the whole projects. Of course, only 75% of that comes from the federal government. You'll be seeing that coming up with the dollar amounts assigned.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the memorandum of agreement with all those people.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion?
Thanks for the work. Appreciate it.
Not, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried.
Mayor, would you just put that in my mailbox tomorrow after you've signed it?
Is this is one? you want?
Just the one page that needs your signature is all I need. I don't need the whole document.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 2. Mike, here, approve the grant application, South Dakota Department of Health, West Nile virus prevention.
So this is the normal grant. Every June, we're applying for it from the Department of Health for West Nile prevention for mosquito spraying. It helps offset the cost from adult side chemical, larvicidal chemical, and the wages, and it's a reimbursement. You don't know the amount until the state's divvied it up between all the communities that have applied. So this is asking for your approval to apply for it.
I have a motion to approve the grant application, South Dakota Department of Health, West Nile virus prevention.
So move.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Hearing any, all in favor, signify by aye. All opposed, Motion carried. Item number 3. Discuss Madison's splash zone. Is it Dan Barrett?
Birch.
Bursch. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Dan Bursch, Madison Fire Department.
All right, thanks for letting me talk to you guys tonight. Sorry it was a little late. We had a quick fire call to go to, so. First off, I brought this idea, I thought of it, after seeing some fire departments do it last year during the COVID spell. So I brought it up to our fire department, to our last meeting, kind of put a plan together and threw some ideas out there, and I got approval, so. First off, I wanted to bring it up to you guys as well, obviously, because we're gonna be utilizing a lot of city owned equipment. So ideally, what we're thinking about doing is we're gonna have 2 to 3 firefighters who are gonna operate the former Madison City pumper truck, which is actually out of service currently since it was replaced with our new Madison engine, to create mobile splash zones throughout various locations in the city. Essentially, we picked out 9 different locations. I'd like to go ahead with the first 4 just as a kind of a test run to see how it goes. And those are the first 4 that are highlighted on that sheet that you all should have gotten. So ideally, what we're gonna do is we'll have 2 different kind of areas, one for younger children, maybe ages 5 and 6 and below, and then one's for a little bit older kids. The younger kids, we're gonna have some splash pads. These things they're called water cannons. They're essentially on a tripod with a garden hose, and it just allows them to squirt water at each other. It's nothing real wild. Then we'll also have some water hoses with spray nozzles and possibly utilize the deck gun and the ground monitors just to do some sprinklers or something. Another option is Raven Industries. I spoke with them and they're willing to provide slip and slides. So we're actually going to get 2 different slides, a larger one for the older kids and then a smaller one for the younger kids, again, just to kind of mitigate liability or injury. So as you can see, those are the dates, tentative locations. I have gone out to those 4 locations and made sure they're set up correctly with water hydrants and everything. I reached out to Mike McGilvery and told him about our plans, and I told him I'd ask him to hopefully maybe clean up those areas, make sure there's no hazards, branches or anything the day before. And I'll personally walk the areas to make sure there's nothing sticking out, rocks or anything like that. But I think we got some pretty good locations there. The last 5, those are tentative because I have spoke with Joel Jorgensen at the high school, and those obviously have to go through their phases. I've also spoke with the police department and the sheriff's department, and they're in full support of this event. They couldn't guarantee me an officer there, obviously, because of their duties. So they'd like to have at least one officer there just to be able to have that point of contact with the kids and the neighbors and all that. And they're going to hand out suckers and do stuff like that. I've also spoke with some gentlemen from the National Guard, and they've offered some interest in hosting one of these, and then also a couple other employee foundations and some nonprofit groups, some church groups that have thought about helping as well. So I figure if I got 2 to 3 firefighters actually running the pumps, running the equipment, and then I figure about 4 or 5 volunteers that are just kind of scattered throughout. You know, if we do slip and slides, we won't do them unless somebody's at the top and the bottom monitoring kids entering and leaving, that sort of thing. So I kind of threw together this bullet point, obviously, to make sure I didn't miss anything, but cost wise, we think we have most of everything that we need on hand. We might have to buy some fittings or some hoses, some stuff like that. I have purchased a couple splash pads as well as the water cannons, and there might be a few other things here and there, but roughly I think the cost of it to the fire department is going to be pretty minimal. Now, obviously, since we're using the former city pumper, we will have fuel costs as well. That will obviously be billed to the city. The water usage, that obviously would be billed to the city as well. We think we'll probably be running the pump at half speed or less. The only time we'd really ramp it up is if we're shooting the deck gun, and that thing can shoot a city block at full. We're not going to be doing that. So I think it'll be relatively low amount of water usage. Obviously with the Parks Department, I'm going to reach out to them again to make sure I finalize the dates and make sure there's no other activities, football, soccer, baseball. And then obviously they said they would provide some garbage receptacles as well as picnic tables. One of the main reasons why I was sticking towards the parks area is because they do have facilities, bathroom facilities and stuff like that. Some of these other locations obviously don't, so. We might just rotate these through these four, find out we want to keep going and just keep going through these four. If we can find some locations near the high school, the playhouse, the middle school, that'd be ideal as well because we have everything needed there, so.
I would suggest that because there are some minimal costs here, that there is in fact a motion to approve this. I think you're approving the use of the public parks, the use of the pumper truck, and allowing them to connect to the nearest hydrant. Those are the three things that I think you're approving if you so approve.
So outside of that, the only thing I listed out were potential issues. Obviously, if you have a fire call, in the event of a fire call, we basically just shut down the city pumper. If it was a serious enough matter, they would just shut it down. Probably have one person take the truck back to the station since it's not something that we use, and the other guys would just take off to the fire. Liability, obviously, we're gonna try to make a safe environment for the kids. With that said, there's always the chance of accident or injury. We're gonna let citizens know that we expect them to be responsible for their children. We want guardians and parents to be around. Obviously, there's gonna be some older kids that might show up by themselves, and if they're okay to be on their own, that's one thing, but obviously for younger kids, we want them to know. We want parents there. Accidents do happen, you know, whether they slip or skin a knee or something, it's bound to happen, so. In the event of bad weather, we'll just obviously reschedule a splash zone if possible, if it doesn't affect another date, but. Outside of that, I put down what I thought would need requests for approval, obviously to use the parks, the property, using the former city pumper truck, connecting to the hydrant, and then assuming you guys approve for the first 4 locations, I'd like to schedule to come back in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, give you guys an update, and then if we decide to go forward and keep doing this, then I need your approval again, so.
I'll make a motion that we allow the city parks, the water, the fire truck to be used for those 4 locations, and
Yep.
have you come back to us in a couple weeks.
Second that.
We appreciate it very much.
Yep.
It provides our kids an opportunity, obviously with the pool not being open. Maybe this will be a nice segue if we can get the pool open, you know, a couple weeks of splash zones, and maybe we'll get the pool open.
Yep.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed, but if not, I know from my side of it, I appreciate it very much.
I think everybody that I've spoke to has shown a lot of support for it. So I've been trying to stress that to people, like the more volunteers we have just to help and supervise, you're not gonna have to do any work. It's basically just kind of stand there, and if a little kid needs help or something, you know. So I just want to make that apparent, like anybody who wants to help, just reach out to me, the fire department. I'll set up a Facebook page and we'll have all the information listed out there. So yeah, if there's anything else you guys need, just give me a call, let me know.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Any further comment or discussion?
Brad, do you have any concerns?
Fire truck, we get a positive gap, so you don't have to worry about backflow. The backflow prevention's taken care of.
Okay.
And we'll put a hydrant meter on it just to track how much water is being used. We don't intend to bill it, but just keep track of it, so. You know, it's more for just data purposes than anything else.
Simon, you check.
I
reached
checked
out.
with the insurance agent, they were fine with it.
Any other comments, discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Item number 4, discuss moving budget deadline per Senate Bill 138.
This is a Senate bill that was approved, goes into effect July 1, would allow us to move our initial budget hearing from September 1st to November 1st. It just moves it back 2 months. We had a department meeting this morning and discussed with department heads if that would cause any conflicts with them to go more in favor, because they stopped what they're doing currently with the construction projects and stuff to focus on getting the budget done. So they were actually very much in favor of it. My hope is that we can use the Tyler software for budgeting. That would be ideal. No guarantees, but we're working towards that right now. So there's nothing, no motion you have to make tonight on this that is, and we can't put it in force until July 1st. Just out here to see if you have any concerns or thoughts on it.
Couple things. First of all, the bill says is that you can go as late as November 1, but you could go anywhere between that time. I mean, you could go October 15, or you could go, you can go out as far as November 1, but no farther, but you've got a lot of latitude if you choose to move it. But secondly, we will also need to pass this by ordinance and then establish our publication deadlines accordingly. So there is a little work to do if we're going to do this. I would suggest, so just so everyone can get their ducks in a row, if you're going to do this, let's do it in July. I'm not saying you got to do it on July 1, but let's get it done at a July meeting so we can all adjust accordingly.
And could we even start getting that paperwork done now?
Absolutely.
So we can just do it right away.
Yes,
I
you-
would be 100% in support of it. I
You
think
could,
it
you
would
could
be
provide
100%
us all some direction and we can start to work with it.
I would be in support of it.
The other benefit we potentially saw is our insurance quotes don't typically come out till
Yeah, that's
October.
huge.
And knowing what that jump is gonna look like would be beneficial for budgeting.
Can we set it the last Monday in October?
Yep, that
That
would
way
be
we don't-
approximately the 23rd. November 1st is the,
I just don't want to get caught where it's a
Yeah.
Sunday, November 1st. So if we set it the last Monday in October, and then build around that.
If I may, there's one more thing you need to do, and that is if we elect to skip, not do it by September 30th, we'll have to have a process in place by which we determine the request that goes forward to the county for the funding. So that'll have to be part of that ordinance, in my own opinion.
and Jameson and I have discussed that a little bit already.
What about union negotiations? So that becomes.
Might help on some insurance stuff that we
Well-
tend to deal with too.
Right, but we're supposed to open negotiations here. Can we look at maybe adjusting some of those as well? Man, I think they would be apt to do that if it's gonna help the insurance piece maybe.
Yeah, I mean, or we could still open and and have it take that long as we work through that, sure.
I would say from the finance side, I would say the last Monday in October. Get rid of that.
So will we be done or we will have the first
So
reading?
the first reading would be the last Monday in October, and then the second one probably the week following.
Hold on. First reading of what?
So when you set your ordinance for
Each year, the
your budget ordinance.
Yeah.
you have
Okay.
five
We have a
years
First,
before it.
yeah, your first reading. then
And you could have your hearing even before that.
All right, and then you're still stuck on October 1, though. You've got to certify tax levies to the county auditor under the new calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good? Okay, and you don't need a motion on that
I
yet?
don't know,
Okay.
just
Okay,
as long as you're okay with us proceeding with
Yes.
laying out that deadline.
Is it more advantageous for you? I guess that's my question.
I think there's a lot of benefit to moving it.
Then I would support it 100%.
And Roxy's in favor too.
what more you need, yeah.
Thumbs up, yeah.
Any public comment? No public comment, any announcements?
One thing I'd like to announce, today we retired the 2400 volt system. We shut off the transformers today and they're no longer operational. That's been in operation in the city of Madison for many, many years, century. So we did that. Everything's on the high voltage now.
No kidding. 100 years?
You were thinking like 1890s maybe or something?
I don't know when they started. They started the electric in the late 1890s. And I don't know when the engines, they switched up to the 2400 volt system somewhere, I want to say in the, might have been in the, just it was nearly a century, in the 20s. They switched to the 2400 volt system around that time frame. So I don't have the exact days, but I know on the around that it's close to 100 years been in place. So big happening.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
And everybody has power, right?
I think so.
Okay.
But everybody-
I don't want my phone ringing.
Mr. Mayor, everybody that's paid in full.
One announcement or I
Yes.
guess discussion I might have is the community center staff or board have asked whether the commission would like to have a meeting out there so that you could see operations at the facility. So an idea that we had, if that's something you want to pursue, is we could take our regular Monday meeting and have it out there, take care of any business items they would need, and then have some time to speak with staff for the facility, whatever it is that you and they want to do. That's something people would be open to. The idea would be that we'd probably move it off the 5:30 timeline to be a time where there's more stuff going on at the community center.
I would be more entertained to do that. I think that would be good for us to go out there and take a look at some things.
I know next week, one of you is gone, the week after that, one of you is gone, so should we just plan for, see if I can get it scheduled for around the 21st?
That would work for me.
Would like a 9 AM or a 1 PM work better? Kind of time
I
to
prefer to go up more if we could.
Anybody else have problems with 9 AM? Work, okay. I will confirm with them on when works best, and of course, we'll make sure to get it posted and advertised accordingly, so everybody in the public is aware of the change in location and time.
Anything else?
Not for me. Thank you.
No executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you and have a nice evening.
That was the 21st.
21st. You're gonna send, will you send a calendar?
This is-
invite out on that?
Yeah, we